All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Chasing Dreams podcast, episode 7 with Charlie and Justin. Justin, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So we are very excited today because, as alluded to in earlier episodes, today marks the first podcast upload where we actually have the privilege of interviewing a guest. It was something we've talked about for some time now. We wanted to get someone on here and give you guys a consistent slew of different community members, different coaches, different athletes, different businessmen, businesswomen, just people all over different industries to kind of give you some insights of how different people chase their dreams and some of the effects they can have on you and some of the advice and relationships that they can form. So Justin, we got him here today. So our very first guest is none other than head coach of Beaver Local Wrestling, Mr. Johnny McComas. Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Great day.
So we have Johnny with us in studio. So Johnny actually was coming from a tournament earlier today, correct?
Right.
Okay, where we took our white team, because for those of you that don't know, I'm actually involved in coaching wrestling as well. I do a lot of the strength programming for Beaver Local High School. And we have several different tiers of our athletes because our team is so big. So you took our white team, went to a Liberty tournament, and give us some insights on the results on that real quick before we get started.
Right. So it was supposed to be a pool tournament. We had some teams back out, so we set it up dual format, and so we put the best lineup together that we could, and we actually went 4-0 today. Beat every team by more than 40 points, I believe, and our kids wrestled well. They're working hard, and they love to compete.
That's awesome.
You know, every single chance that they get out there and compete, they love it.
And that's the most important thing about wrestling is obviously
right.
finding competition.
If you do not enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to, be able to train and diet and do, what you need to do the right way. You got to enjoy what you're doing out there. And,
awesome.
To perform at a high level like these kids are right now.
So as you can tell, Mr. McComas is very hardworking. Like I said, we just got done at that tournament, and he's already coming and joining you and I. How awesome is that?
That's pretty cool, man.
All right, so give you a little background on who Coach McComas is. So you recently took over one of the most prestigious high school athletic programs in the state of Ohio. You are the head coach of Beaver Local Wrestling.
Yes.
Currently ranked in the top 5 in the state, consistently challenging for one of the top teams in the state and hopefully someday in the country. That's where you're taking us.
Absolutely.
So you're a very important member of the community as well. Obviously, that's something that kind of goes along with being the head coach of a small town team. Whether you like it or not, you're obviously a public figure. You have a ton of outreach to parents. You have a ton of outreach to community members and to kids. And you have a pretty decorated background yourself on wrestling. So without making your head too big and exploding your ego too much, you were a 2011 graduate of Beaver Local. So you're coaching now at your alma mater. 2-time state placer, over 120 career high school wins. And then you went on to wrestle at West Liberty University, where you were a 4-year letterman. And what weight classes did you wrestle in college?
I wrestled 133 and 141 at the end there.
Because I know that the wrestling classes for college are obviously different than high school.
Yes.
So, and in fact, aren't the ones from high school different now than what you two used to wrestle?
Yes, they've changed.
The only one I remember was the 106 and 103, because I remember when I was in high school, it was 103, and now it's obviously bumped up to 106. All right, very cool. So having Coach McComas on here was actually perfect because it felt right in line, Justin, with what you and I discussed last week.
Right.
The topic last week was developing a support team and having people around you that are going to engender success with you. And help grow your brand and help grow you as a person. And then we also talked about one of the talking points that Justin wanted to discuss was the difficult conversations.
Yeah, making a hard decision and talking to people.
Yeah, so if someone's headed down the wrong path or someone's not giving their all, that if you truly care about someone, you're going to have that kind of discussion with them and you're going to be the one to facilitate it, which is tough, especially when you're close to someone.
Right.
And I think that the quote that we used last week is, the one that I tell my kids all the time in class is I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Right.
And sometimes those are two entirely different things. So with Coach McComas, your entire job is predicated on having good communication, forming these relationships, and unfortunately, oftentimes having difficult conversations with people.
Right.
So before we get into all those topics that kind of align very well with episode 6, just give a little background about yourself, just informally, like Who is Coach McComas? Where did you come from? Where did you start? We know that you grew up in the area. What brought you from, a Pee Wee wrestler to a 4-year letter winner in college?
Right. So growing up, I was 4 years old. My dad took me to my first wrestling practice. My uncle, Danny Hassan, our youth wrestling coach, and has been our youth wrestling coach for 30 years now. And over
That's
30
awesome.
years, and that's unbelievable.
Longevity at its finest.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that is taking something from the foundation and building it from the ground up.
Absolutely.
Our success is just, for so long now, we've almost been hand-fed these kids from Danny, for so long. So many, state placers since he started at the youth level that have come up through his program. I mean, I think the top 10 most winningest wrestlers on our board in the room, 9 of them came from Danny.
And I think that's a testament to, like we talked about, having the support team, because everybody sees the glory that comes along with being the head coach and the winning tradition of the high school.
Right.
But that foundational level, starting at Coach Hassan, that's what develops it. You can't build the house with pretty blinds and nice furniture without the foundation. So Coach Hassan essentially served as your foundation to get you started.
Right. He has done all the work, honestly. But so that's where it all started. I was 4 years old. My dad took me to my first practice, and I just watched. I didn't practice. He said, do you think this is something that you'd want to do? Because my dad never wrestled growing up. He played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So this was my uncle's idea, and it kind of changed my entire family forever when I said yes. I didn't know what I was getting everyone into.
Yeah,
my little brother into.
Right.
It's been a lot of work, but it's been great. It's been rewarding. So that's where it all started.
And what was it like starting off? Were you like, because I remember, take football, for example. I remember my first football game I ever played in. I got absolutely crushed on the opening kickoff. I was a little kid, and I thought to myself, I never want to play this again. Now, lo and behold, obviously that didn't happen. I continued to play for the better half of my life. But when you went out, were you good? Obviously you're naturally athletic. Did that show initially, or were you?
When I was 5 years old, no. I was not. I did not win my first couple matches. I think I won my first wrestling match at Oakland, actually. I think I went to a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And so my entire life, my dad maybe missed 2 wrestling matches.
Yeah.
Ever. That was one of them. My very first win.
It wasn't there for your first win.
For some reason, I think it was around Christmas time. He used to own the jewelry store, so that's his extremely busy time of year. My mom took me to an open tournament over there. I believe that's where I won my first match. But no, not initially. I know I wasn't great. I wasn't winning a lot of matches at first, but I was obsessed.
Yeah.
And Danny actually, I think to this day, he blames me for breaking the door at his house because there's a stand-up drill that the little kids do where they do a stand-up against the wall and they pop their back against it. And I did that at his house over and over and over. And he bet me when I was little that I couldn't do 100 push-ups in a row without stopping. He owed me $10 after that. So
Right.
so it was just becoming obsessed with it. I wanted to win. I was told if I worked hard that I was going to win and it was going to come. So I believed what they told me. There was a lot of great guys. There's so many great guys in the youth program at that time to help. My Uncle Dan, my dad, Brad Boo Height. I'm trying to think. Mark Bully was one of them, and Mark Bully had a son. His name was also Mark Bully. Kid that I looked up to when I was little, probably 4 or 5 years older than me, was a state champion in youth. He actually went to Lisbon, so never wrestled after youth, was a state champion, and then didn't have wrestling at his school.
It's interesting to me how, number one, how you have all these working hands. We didn't even get into the topic fully yet of having a support team, but that's something we want to talk about. But you just, basically shot it right out of there, right there. You have so many people that are going into this. It takes a village, to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And obviously that was the case with you. And the other interesting point is that you were so bad at it initially because usually people so this is something that I can attest to personally, and I'm sure everybody's different. I don't know about you, Justin, but with me, I gravitate towards things that I'm good at. So growing up, basketball was always my favorite sport. And honestly, truthfully, it probably still is. But I gravitated more towards football because I was better at it. Now, not that I was a bad basketball player by any means, but when you're 5'9" playing at a very prestigious program, it was
You don't
difficult to, like, especially when I think I had 3 or 4 kids from my graduating class that played college basketball, which is pretty unheard of, at a local school, not necessarily like a prep school or a charter school or
Right.
something like that. So I gravitated more towards football, even though I didn't initially, love it. It was because I was good at it. So it's kind of unique unique perspective that you took on something that you weren't good at, but continued to seek it through. Because obviously now in adulthood, I'm a little more mature. So if I'm not good at something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get good at it. But
Right.
when I was a kid, especially if I was 4 or 5 years old and I wasn't good at it, I said, okay, forget this. I'm going to go home and play with my dinosaurs. I don't want to deal with this.
Right. This is something I was always told from the beginning is that with this sport, the person that works the hardest is going to win.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, and I, even when I was little, I just thought in my mind, no one can outwork me.
Mhm.
Like, I just like, I don't know, just in your mind, you're an absolute savage, and
Yeah.
and whatever it takes. Like, I always loved when I was little, say like Christmas morning or Thanksgiving Day, like when I knew no one else was working out,
Mhm.
to work out, because like I just thought that gave me an edge over absolutely everybody else.
Mike Tyson used to say that about training. He said he would go running at 4 in the morning.
Mhm.
And he said that the reason he didn't have to get up at 4 in the morning, but he got up at 4 in the morning because he
Nobody
thought
else
that,
was.
exactly, no one else is doing this right now. So if it gives me some semblance of a mental edge or pushes me a little bit harder or even makes me feel a little bit better about the process because I'm taking that extra step, then, so be it. It's well worth it.
Jocko actually does that 4:30 in the morning every day,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. It's funny though, like you said, obsessed is because I started wrestling when I was 4 at East Liverpool, right down the road, and I was the exact opposite. I come out of the gate and was bigger than everybody else, so I was a savage. Like I think I went 5 years and never lost. And then when I came to Beaver local, it was a whole another animal. And I got to wrestle with Coach Aslan, and it was insane the amount of skill that they taught compared. And I'm not down on East Liverpool because I loved it there, you know what I mean. But when I came here, the program is just so much more structured.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
definitely ahead of it. And I think that's why it's been so consistently good for as long as we can remember.
Yeah. To have a good youth program, you can coach 3 moves.
Yeah.
And teach kid a head and arm, stuff that's not going to work in high school, and have a great youth program. He wants kids to
learn how to wrestle.
He wants the kids to learn how to wrestle. He wants to go to Columbus and watch these kids one day.
Yeah.
Like that's why he does it. He says, when I pay my $4 to get into the dual meet, I want to see you guys winning in high school against not local competition, the best.
Right. And it says a lot to like Coach Aslan's character too, because I haven't seen him in probably 15 years, and I came and watched the Hopple actually. And I heard somebody talking to him, and I heard his voice, and I poked my head in the door and said, is that the voice. Coach Aslan? And he says, yeah. And he says, how are you doing? And he remembered me, and I was a little kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I never wrestled for him, but maybe a year or 2. So I thought that was pretty cool. Right.
So you had a foundational work ethic, obviously, that started based on your just refusal to give up and, hey, I'm not very good at this and I don't care what anybody says, I'm going to get good. And then that transitioned into middle school and then ultimately to high school. So what was your high school career like?
So going on from, I would say late, I'll go back for a second to late elementary school, 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
6th grade, 7th grade, that's where things really started to pick up. I don't think I lost a regular season match at all in 6th grade. I might have lost 1 match in 7th grade, 1 match in 8th grade, something like maybe 2 in 7th grade. I don't know. It's where things started to really kind of pick up. My little cousin, Danny Hassan, was coming through.
And that's Coach Hassan's son, for our listeners. Yeah.
Yes, my little brother was starting. One thing that we did is my dad started, buying weightlifting equipment, putting it in my basement. 3 days a week, we had youth wrestlers in my dad's basement,
getting after it,
lifting weights. Whether we knew what we were doing or not, we knew that we were working hard. And and at that age, like that's what it was about. I mean, we were, learning the proper techniques and stuff like that, but just knowing that we were working hard. That's more important than anything else. Now going into junior high and high school. So my freshman year, not super successful. probably better than the majority of guys I'm wrestling. I weighed maybe 95 pounds soaking wet, and you got the guys cutting from 115 pounds down to 103.
Yeah, because at 103,
I was very small.
Yeah.
Didn't make the state tournament or anything. And one thing that I can remember is going to the state tournament when I didn't make it my freshman year, and going up. And if you haven't been there, we get a team box.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those luxury boxes that the team hangs out in, and I went in there, and I was talking to Doug, and he's like, well, you going to be here next year? I said, he said, I'm going to be here next year. I said, I'm either going to be wrestling or I'm coming to top this building and jumping off. and honestly, from then on, that's how I trained. Like I did not want to feel that again.
Yeah.
Nothing matters but state.
Right.
Yep. That's awful when you're
Right.
when you're in that position. And not that you don't want to see others have success, but when you see your peers having success and having enjoyment wrestling at the state tournament in Columbus, and you're sitting there unable to participate because you didn't qualify. It's
Right.
Now, obviously, you got to put context here because generally speaking, at a 103 weight class, now a 106 weight class, usually it's underclassmen because it's such a small weight.
Yes.
But at the time, I mean, you're still having people, like you said, that can cut down. And so you're wrestling 18-year-old men,
Yes.
and you're 14 years old, so it does make a difference in experience level. So usually whenever somebody makes a jump in competition, whether it's from high school to college or from middle school to high school, or even in bodybuilding, like we've talked about several times, when you jump from like a regional show to a national level show, the competition, it's like that you always say like, oh, there's levels to this. Like there are so many different tiers, and when you jump up a tier, it almost takes you by surprise. Like, I remember like playing football, every time I would jump up a division or a level or whatever, you would look at it and it was almost like shocking to you how big, fast, and strong everybody was. And then once you adapt to that level of play, you jump up again, they're like, oh my goodness, everybody's so big, fast, and strong, and it just continues. It's cyclical. So then freshman year was, in your estimation, it was not a success just because of the high standards you hold and the accountability you have.
Right.
So then going forward,
Majority of people, it would be a successful season. To me, at the time, no.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. I was disappointed.
So what happened next then? We go on to sophomore year, junior year, and you just slowly continued to improve?
Yes. Well, just the 1 year in, just maturing and being bigger, and now I'm cutting to wrestle 103 pounds. Not 95 pounds of soaking wet. I'm in the state semis.
Yep.
Right.
The very next year, and
so you accomplished your goal. You didn't have to jump off the roof.
Right,
That's
right.
awesome.
I did not have to jump off the roof. I'm here today. Yeah.
That's good.
And and looking back, whenever you graduate from this and this sport and what we do, you eventually realize it was never about the wins and losses.
Yeah.
What you're able to take from this, and that you can just do absolutely anything now.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm able to put absolutely everything into this sport to where nothing else matters, and just grind the way that we have to every single day, to compete. After, like Dan Gable quote here, but after wrestling, everything in life is easy.
And you see a lot of that because I know a lot of wrestlers personally from competition perspective that are very successful bodybuilders because they spend their whole life, their whole early life in childhood training hard with weights and with cardio, dieting, whether it's the correct form of dieting or not when you're younger,
right.
just trying to make weight. So they're used to the suffering. They're used to the caloric restriction. So a lot of times those people tend to go on and become like really, really good bodybuilders. You would be amazed at the number of bodybuilders that I've competed with and against that are actually like former wrestlers. It's
right.
really astonishing. And I think that can parallel other areas too, like not just in sports, but like you said, in life. Like if you get the discipline and you get the time commitment and you can allocate that time and that commitment towards something else, like business, like wrestlers are going to make great businessmen someday if that's what they choose to do. As long as you can superimpose that time allocation and that effort elsewhere.
Yeah, making a change in your own life. That wrestler mindset, like you said, if you can be a wrestler and be a pretty good wrestler, you can do anything. And, I kind of what I did last year, lose 200 pounds. Everybody said I couldn't do it, but like I was like, yeah, I can. I know I can.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't at first,
Mhm.
but I remembered, and then
Right.
it's this whole wrestling thing.
Right. Yeah, you can do anything, and it's not. We're talking about like the physical part of the sport, but it takes, the student athlete experience. It takes everything. They want you to have the grades.
Yes.
Your social life has to be in check. You can't be on Facebook flipping off the camera and doing everything else. You have to represent yourself and your school and your family the right way.
Personal conduct
And-
during matches, like if you lose, don't throw your headgear. Don't take the singlet
Absolutely.
off. Yeah.
You are expected to respond the right way no matter what happens to you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And they want you working hard and winning. And all three things are important all the time.
Yeah.
The grades, the social life, and the winning. Because
That's what we're here to do.
yeah.
Yeah. And whether it's winning on the mat, winning in life, winning in the
Right.
gym, that's what we're all here for. Is to help provide some mentalities for what it takes to be successful and to win.
Yeah. If one thing drops, hey, if my grades drop, I can't wrestle. If
Mm-hmm.
if the social life is not in check, then you're not going to get the respect that you may deserve.
I think
And,
it's analogous to sorry to interrupt. I feel like it's analogous to like a Jenga board where, you have all these pieces that build the foundation, right? And if you mess up one little time, like, okay, maybe you can get away with pulling this little piece out. Like maybe you failed a test that you didn't prepare for. It's only one test. It's not going to bring your grade that far down. That's okay. But if you continue to pull those pieces, whether it's pulling a piece out of the social life for the worse or pulling a piece out of the time commitment for the worse. You can only pull so many pieces before the foundation of the Jenga building completely crumbles. And with wrestling or in any sport for that matter in this day and age, you have to have all those things in check. Otherwise, you're going to crumble. It's pretty crazy to think that like these tiny little nuanced decisions affect everything. And you try to tell that. That's the difficult thing, I'm sure, with coaching is, because I deal with it in the classroom and you deal with it, Justin, at work, where when you're training someone, when you try to tell someone that these little seemingly insignificant acts or lack thereof affect what you're looking to do down the road, they only see the here and now. They don't see the big picture, so it's kind of difficult to convey to them.
Yeah, just remembering your actions affect everybody involved with you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Everything you do at this point, you're marketing yourself for the future at all times. And every single job I've ever had, I knew someone through wrestling. When I was in high school, when I was in high school, I worked for Doug. I worked for OS Hill. People that I knew through wrestling. I got a good job at the county whenever I was in, through college in the summer. Someone I knew through wrestling. I'm here now.
Yeah.
So let's actually skip forward now, talking about the transition into college then and how wrestling kind of led you down that path. So obviously very accomplished, as we alluded to earlier in high school. You get to college. Was there another transitional setback your freshman year where kind of like it was at high school where you said, oh man, I went from winning all the time to having what I consider in my own high expectations to be a subpar season? Did that happen freshman year going onto campus?
Yes and no. The change, the biggest difference from college to high school to college level wrestling was the strength.
Yeah.
And the weight room program that a lot of high schools don't have, and that every college must have. As far as the physical part of wrestling, that was the most difficult part. You had to learn to love the weight room.
Yep. And see, dude, I think that's like with every sport now is like even at the high school level too. Like, this is something I've told to all my athletes is in today's day and age, like you can't get away with doing something part-time. Like now I'm a big advocate of multi-sport athletes. So I don't consider someone who does this sport, then does this sport, then does this sport to be part-time because they're full-time athletic development. But like you don't have the luxury of picking up a baseball bat once the season starts in March and then putting it down once the season ends and not picking it up again until the next year. In sports in today's age at any level, think about wrestling, how young they start these kids. You have to work tirelessly and extremely, extremely hard just to be average, just to not be terrible. That's how hard you have to work.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's hard for people to conceptualize what you have to do to get good, let alone just to not stink.
Yeah.
So you get to college, weight room is super important. The physical or the physicality of it is kind of a little bit of a surprise to you.
You're wrestling a grown man.
Yeah. Who's equally as technically sound as you.
Right. At that point, everybody's good. So now when you go into a match, that guy wrestles good guys every single day.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't have a lazy drill partner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to just wear him down in the first period.
Yeah.
Everybody works hard. Iron sharpens iron, and everybody's getting better every day. Going from a high school room to a college room where you just maybe in the high school room I have 2 guys that can wrestle with me. Now I got 8.
Mm-hmm.
When we're switching partners and we're going live, I got 8 guys that can push me to give me everything I want every single day.
So as you went up, did you feel like it was did you feel like you almost had an obligation to yourself to learn how to work harder too then? Because like I had that in college, in academics more so than anything. When, the academic workload that I had to do in college was extensively more obviously than high school. And I was one of the few lucky ones that was able to get through high school with phenomenal grades and not have to apply myself a whole lot. Now, I did apply myself to the degree that I thought was applying myself, but looking in hindsight, it really wasn't. But, I could get by. Well, then when you get to college, you can't get by on just going to class and, participating. If you want to have, great grades, and if you want to have a 4.0, you can skate by probably, but the mentality that the 3 of us share is not just one of skating by.
Right.
So did you feel like you had to learn, not that you didn't work hard in high school or in middle school or in youth wrestling, because you said that was the reason why you were successful is because you did work so hard, but did you feel like you could tap into like a next level? Like you're like, oh man, I could really give even a little bit more to this? Or is it just not necessarily working harder, but having more resources to work with?
Having more resources. You, like I said, with the drill partners, like in wrestling, the room that you're in is such a huge part of it. Do I have good guys to drill with? And, that will work hard. That and to go live with every day. That was the biggest resource. The weight room. Really learning about it and really just learning to love to do it. Like almost everyone on my team, like even when it's not season, they're lifting together because everyone liked to do it. Right?
Yes.
After season ended, we're all getting in the weight room, getting the summer body ready. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like getting hype in there, and I never loved to lift before, but that was something that I enjoyed, and not only that, something that's hard for these high school kids is now. I go to practice. I'm there for 2 hours. I go home. What do I have to eat? Like what?
Yeah.
Like in college, that was different. You go to the calf, and I literally you see the nutrition facts above every single thing in line. And
you know what you can have.
The coaches can print out what the meals are going to be and what calories and what I need to eat. Like it was easy. It was done for you. That resource was huge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen the cafeteria the way that they do it. It's great. Like I couldn't,
Yeah.
It was huge.
I can imagine like being in a college level wrestling room. It's like almost representative of like a high level tournament finals.
Right.
Because you're with those guys. Everybody in that room has arrived. You know what I mean? They've got where they wanted to go, and that's to get to college and wrestle. So you're not wrestling there's like you said, there's no bums, right?
It's like Darwinism, man. Survival of the fittest. Like
Right.
only the elite have made it this far.
And that's the goal for the high school room now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep
the team
no,
solid.
You don't just get your spot and it's mine. You got to work to keep it, or someone else is going to take it.
Yeah.
We
had an old
That's
football.
where it needs to be.
There was an old coach that not old in age, but old in experience level, that I coached with early on in my career, Coach Ken Chupa, who coached at the Division I level and has been around it. If he's listening to this, he's going to get mad. But Chupa always used to call it the dirty 30. And he said that, a lot of coaches get fixated on the number of athletes they have on their team. Like, hey, I got 25 kids on my basketball roster, or I got 65 kids on my football roster. But ultimately, that really doesn't matter because it's the quality of kids over the quantity. And he would always say, I need the dirty 30. He said, I can do all the drills. I can do like inter-squad scrimmaging and get live practice reps 11 on 11 with a couple, extras at different positions. He said, all I need is 30 kids to be dudes, to be studs, and not only on a talent perspective, but just like a hard work perspective. If you give me 30 kids that work their butts off, I'm going to be successful. And so not that you ever run a program in the mindset of I'm going to run off kids, but sometimes that's just a casualty that has to happen. Like in life, as you go on, you kind of have to weed yourself away from negative people. And that kind of happens organically on a team. Whereas if you push as hard as we push in that weight room and push as hard as we push in the wrestling room, there are people throughout the season that start to drop off. And just because they can't hang. And like you said, that's a testament to the standard that you set. If you set the bar, people are going to jump. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what perspective you look at it, some of the people can't jump that high and they get cut out.
Right.
So after college, Coach, you ended up getting a job at the school district and you were an assistant coach.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your time as an assistant coach. Was it nostalgic? Was it fun coming back? Like, what was it like, the first time you walk in as an assistant coach at your alma mater? Were the kids responsive to you right away? Because I'm guessing that you had some kids that were familiar with you, obviously, because you had just wrestled there a few years earlier.
Right. Not only that, all of these kids. So when I was in junior high and high school, I would stay and help coach the youth kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, my Uncle Danny Hass basically made me. So these are kids that I watched wrestle and grow up. They're my brother's age. I would be at all the matches when I was in college and come home for Christmas break. I was still in there working. All of these kids already knew me, and and had pretty good relationships with a lot of them.
So you didn't have to earn that respect.
No, it wasn't. And we're lucky to have respectful kids.
Yeah.
But coming back, that wasn't a hard transition at all. That was, it was fun. It was,
Yeah. And even little things like the facility, you know the community members. So I'm sure you were obviously welcomed with open arms. Now Justin brought up a good point.
Yeah, so
you want to talk about that a little bit?
I kind of came back to watching wrestling here now, and something new, and it's choices. It's on everything. It's on the shirts. It's on the mat.
Wearing it right now.
Yeah,
Everything.
You're wearing it right now.
Everything on social media is hashtag choices. So it's kind of at this point,
choices?
It's synonymous with Beaver local wrestling.
Yeah.
How did that start? What does it mean? Did it start specifically with one thing that happened, and then you came up with this slogan, or did it kind of grow? What was the origin of that?
Definitely started with Doug Hopple, an assistant on this staff for many, many years. He's been around. Doug's been around forever. He's, we call him the Godfather. He's kind of the voice of reason. He, if I get a little too hyped up or whatever, he's the one to calm me down. And he's, he has done this for a long time. He loves this program. And
Coach Hopple does a very good job of bringing you up when you need brought up and bringing you down when you need brought down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And absolutely. That's why he's the Godfather. But anyway, because choices is just something that he always said. And just, in wrestling and in life, everything is about choices. A kid comes in and is complaining, I'm 12 pounds overweight. He says, choices. You chose to eat and drink what you ate and drank. Mm-hmm. You chose not to wake up and work out this morning. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely everything. Like a kid comes off the mat because he lost a match because he was out of shape. Choices. You chose not to stay after practice and do extra conditioning.
You chose to lose this match,
right?
In a sense. And I've had that discussion with Coach Hopple as well, because he always brings up choices, and he said, that even kids, in the past who have been, excised from the program or removed from the program for whatever reason, no one ever gets kicked off a team. He says that you quit. No one ever gets kicked off. You always quit. And the reason you quit is because you chose to do whatever it is that, quote, got you kicked off.
Yes.
So and more or less that's a choice.
Yes.
You chose to quit, whether you
never want
realize
to kick someone off, because we know that you need to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, it's something that like there's if you don't want to be a part of this, there's something wrong with you. Like
Yeah.
the family atmosphere and what we have going on and how special it is. You know how everyone just cares about everyone so much. You got everybody working hard. You want to be a part of this, and you want to see kids be a part of it. You don't want to see them give it up because something gets tough. Because if you give kids an ultimatum, say like if you don't do this, then you're kicked off the team. Kid, oftentimes if you give them an ultimatum, they're not going to respond the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
At first they need to be coached through those things. So, I mean, and to do what we do and to work as hard as we work, if you're willing to come out there and lace some shoes up and put your foot on the line, there's an automatic respect right there.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's super important because you coach long enough, and even if you don't coach that long, you run into a lot of kids that need wrestling more than wrestling needs them.
Absolutely.
And
everybody needs wrestling.
For me, looking at the gym, I don't really come from a very like economically impoverished background, nor did I have a rough childhood. Like I was in an upper middle class family my whole life with two loving parents, and everything was somewhat picturesque compared to the travesties that some experience at home. So my upbringing wasn't bad, but there were a lot of times where I did feel as though I needed the gym. The gym didn't need me. The gym's always going to be there without me. I'm not, no matter how much I compete, I'm never going to be the best in the world. But I needed the gym for my own personal growth and professional growth and emotional and spiritual growth. So some of these kids, they need to be involved with wrestling a lot more than wrestling needs them.
Right.
And you start to earn a respect for those people. Like Justin, you and I talk about this at the gym all the time. It doesn't matter how big and strong you are, how good you look. I get more respect from the people that are working the hardest. It's shortly after New Year's, right? You got a lot of New Year's resolutioners that are starting to get back into fitness or get into fitness for the first time, and they get looked down on, and they have like this negative connotation with them amongst the gym goers. Like, oh, look at this, this person's just starting off, they're out of shape. And it's like, you got to start somewhere. Like that person needs to be in here right now, because sometimes I don't want to sound, overly dramatic, but sometimes it's a matter of life and death. Yeah. Like Justin, you and I spoke about that too. For you literally saved your life by getting into fitness.
Yeah. Saving my life.
So it's just, it's crazy to think that like something that sometimes we take for granted, these kids really need to be a part of this program. And then the other thing you said too is who could not be excited about it? For me, I didn't have a hand in building this. I moved to this school district about a half decade ago, maybe a little bit longer, probably about 6 years ago or so. And, I didn't know anybody. And so I really didn't lie any type of a foundation here. So when I got asked by Coach McComas to be involved with the strength programming. Now, I'd worked with a lot of the athletes, like either for personal training outside of the school facility or just from coaching them in football or coaching them in other sports. So I've worked with the majority of them. But to be asked to be a part of something, I kind of felt, there was almost like a little bit of guilt that went into it, because I'm like, I'm already being asked. I'm being asked to do all the strength programming for a school that's already ranked top 5 in the state of Ohio. So any success we have, I don't really have a hand in yet, so I kind of felt like, do I post and boast about, our success on social media? But I don't at the same time want people to think that I'm taking credit for the immediate success, because I really didn't have a hand in this. Even though I was humbled to be asked, it was still something like, I don't want people to think that I think I built this or had anything to do with this. Right. I'm introspective and self-reflective enough to know that it was already pre-established. So after your assistant coaching stint, which lasted, how many years were you assistant?
What was it, 4 years?
Okay. 4 years. Coach Williams, the former head coach, very successful tenure at Beaver Local, retires from coaching, at least as the head coach. He has a family now, 3 young kids, and he kind of stepped away to a smaller role, still helping out with the program, but to focus on family. And now you take over. So Justin and I were talking, and the one thing we discussed is, the likelihood of you being not necessarily intimidated. I don't know if that's the right word, but you being having extra stress because the high expectations of being the head coach of a program that, number one, has talent on the roster, it is expected to succeed, and regardless of who you have on the roster is expected to succeed. So did you feel like an added sense of pressure, not only from like the coaching logistics side of things, but like I have to perform, otherwise I'm going to look like the village idiot, you know?
Right. Yeah. I'm going to be lying if I said that there wasn't a lot of pressure because
it's Beaver local wrestling.
Yes, it's Beaver local wrestling. There's a high expectation, and with high expectations, there's pressure.
Yep.
And so last season, we're leaving the state tournament. We had 3 state placers, and we left mad. Like upset with our performance. Like what? Like how's that even possible? That you have 3 guys in your lineup that went down, and the pinnacle of Ohio wrestling.
A large majority of the programs in Ohio are lucky to get one.
Yeah.
Right.
If they get one state placer, like,
right.
Oh, successful season, we got somebody from our room onto the podium.
Right. Yeah. When I came through the program, yeah, we were good, but we're hoping to get a couple guys there and place one too. And we left there upset because we placed 3, and that's just like that's where the expectations are right now because of with hard work there's expectations.
So is it important? I'm sorry to interrupt again. I want to touch on this because this is important, and I think that you kind of segued into it perfectly. So you talk about the expectations of Beaver local wrestling. Justin, you experienced it as a Beaver local wrestler. Now, Coach McComas, you experienced it both as an athlete, as an assistant coach, and now as a head coach. So you two have been immersed in it for a long time, and you understand the expectation level. Now, and this is something that our listeners can take away here. When you talk about the expectations are here, regardless of what tangible or quantitative measurables you use to say where here is, who sets the expectations? Where do they come from? Does it come from you as the head coach? Does it come from the community? Does it come from the individual students? Like, I think of that with my own self in regards to bodybuilding. I have a very high expectation for myself. When I go into a show, my expectation is to win the show. Now, I look at it level-headedly, and I know that just because I don't win doesn't mean that it wasn't a success, but there is disappointment if I don't. So that's kind of my personal expectations. I also know that my mom and my dad have high expectations for me with how I conduct myself. And when they go to a show, my mom and dad expect me to win. So who sets the tone? Where do these expectations come from? Is it from history? And then branching off of that, what do you do to maintain them? Because you have to maintain these expectations. Do they come from you, the kids, the parents? Who sets them?
Community.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own expectations for us. And they're all high. But, it's about the work you put in. When you've put absolutely everything you've had into this, you expect it out of yourself. I'm texting. I was just texting an athlete maybe an hour ago. And but I ended the conversation with, I said, I'm not lying. It's going to suck. It's going to be hard, but it will be worth it.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, you put everything you have into it. You kind of set your own expectation. And like my expectation is that when you come off the mat, that you just know in your heart that there's nothing else that you possibly could have done.
The thing you keep bringing up.
I win, lose, whatever. I've worked so hard that I know that there's nothing else I could have done, and I'm going to be comfortable with the result.
You're finishing on empty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. Dude, my hairs are standing out. You can't fake this.
Going to failure.
Yeah, you can't
basically.
fake this. I'm so passionate about just like getting like the most raw emotion out of someone. Like in their. I don't know, just like in the trenches of battle, like I've seen my little brother in the state finals, like
3 times, first 3 years.
After injuring his elbow last year and everything that he went through throughout the season, and the extra work that he had to put in to be in shape and to stay down to weight and to stay strong enough to do it, and make it to the state semis, with a torn elbow, basically with one arm, and like what that took. That win, lose, or draw, you have to just kind of be comfortable with the result. There's just like nothing else you could have done.
So hearing you speak, you keep bringing up the hard work thing. And I think that, we had the intentions of this conversation eventually leading us to talking about relationships, which we're going to get to finish up. But the hard work continues to be a common theme, not only for previous podcasts, but for the podcast with yourself, Coach. And, you say about the hard work and over again. So what I'm getting at, and this is what I sense from you, is that regarding the expectations, obviously the people on the outside, because you said there's different expectations and everyone's expectations are different, but we know that the outsider's perspective expectations are product based. They're based on the final product. Mm-hmm. They are performance based. Yeah. Your expectation is to win. But amongst you as a coach, amongst your assistants in the room, and amongst your men that you have in the room training, your student athletes, the expectation isn't on the outcome, it's on the process. So the expectations of I'm going to work hard, because I think that like Justin speaking about, endurance sports, or myself speaking about, physique sports, whenever you have an expectation of work, you don't have to worry about the expectation of outcome. Because I think that the expectation of outcome is going to take care of itself if you set the standard with what you're doing in the wrestling room, or in the weight room, or on the track, or in the swimming pool, or what have you. So I think that's interesting how, the hard work kind of translates into the ultimate outcome of a performance indicator or an expected outcome or whatever the community's expectations are.
Hard work pays off.
Simple.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So going forward, two last things we wanted to finish up with. So, we talked in our last episode about the importance of forming relationships, building, a community of people with you that's going to help you find success and yield success in your life. So with you, Coach, you spoke earlier about all these people that had a hand in your upbringing and brought you through wrestling, and it basically paved the way and helped pave the way for your success. And you said that so many people to be thanked, and you named a bunch of names that I'm sure you will probably be upset that there's so many other people that helped you along the way that you can't possibly
there are. I can't name them all.
Give them credit, So now the role is kind of reversed, and it's transitioned to you are the person that's building up the student athletes that are coming up through. You're the one that's giving back to them. And, I think because I have a unique perspective of being around you on a frequent basis. I coach with you and work at the same school as you. So I know how much of a hands-on coach you are, for lack of a better term, and how you form relationships. And I know that's something that Coach Williams probably instilled in you, because that's something that he's very, very big on, is forming relationships with players. Like the old saying,
he's great with it. He's the best.
They say, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I see the things that go on behind the scenes, like you waking up at 5 a.m, 4 a.m. to open the complex and let people in the wrestling room who need to train because they're overweight. I see you staying after. You were 5-10 minutes late for the podcast today because you were giving a student athlete a ride home because you never ride home. Like you mentioned earlier, you're texting and giving encouraging words to your athletes on a frequent basis. So I see all the things that go beyond this. So like with you, number one, and I know this kind of goes without saying, how important are those relationships? And then secondly is, how do you manage the other relationships that people don't see? For example, your relationships with assistant coaches, your relationships with parents, because I think that people, they kind of get in this mindset where the only relationships you need to form as a coach are the ones with your kids. Like, okay, that's number one, but there's a lot of other parts that go into this. It's not just, all the kids like me and they have high expectations and I push them real hard and we're a big happy family. Because sometimes when you have expectations that are high for kids, it seems ironic, but there are some parents that think that your expectations may be a little much and they may disagree with you. So how do you balance, relationships with your coaches and relationships with parents as well? Is that something that comes into play a lot?
Well, with coaches, it's, with the other coaches, it's pretty simple because we are, we're a pretty tight-knit family where we're at, and we bring in who we want.
Yeah.
And, if you're not genuine about this, if you don't care about this program, you're probably not going to last long. You're probably not even going to get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had great guys, and so the relationships there, that's easy.
Yeah.
Now, do we disagree sometimes? Has there been disagreements? Yes.
It's a family. You fight in a family.
Yes, yes. You fight in a family and you work it out, and things work out in the end. And it's because everyone is so passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that this is best for the team, if he thinks that's best for the team, you're going to fight it out because you are passionate about it, and you want to see the best for the program, whether it's a fight or not. And that can be a good thing.
And I have that discussion with parents too, not just from a coaching perspective, but from a teaching perspective as well. Is I try to make it clear to them, and I know that they understand this, but I have a deep-rooted interest in your son or daughter's success equally as much as you do. So it may seem weird for someone else who's obviously much younger than you to tell you what is best for your son or daughter, especially when your opinion differs. But, I tend to try to, mitigate any type of parent conflict just by starting off conversations that could potentially get heated because there's a disagreement and say, hey, listen, you and I are on the same page. We want what's best for him. Mm-hmm. We both do. We both want the same thing. You just think this is the best route to take, and I think this is the best route to take. Mm-hmm. Let's talk it out. So I think that, like you said, when you fight amongst coaches, everybody wants success within the program. They're there for the same reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, what do the parents want? It's, there could be some parents that just want to hear, just the greatest things about their kid, whether they're working hard or not. But that's not what I'm here for. Well, like we said earlier, you're going to hear what you need to hear, not what
you want to hear.
Not what you want to hear.
Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes they're different.
But one thing that I know that all parents want is, they want to know that you care about your kid, that you are invested in their kid's success.
Yeah.
If this guy genuinely cares about my kid, if he's waking up at 4 a.m. to go in the complex for my kid, if he's doing all this work, then that's why I don't expect anything out of them that I wouldn't do. So I always try to put it out there that I try to work hard, and because I expect it out of them. I'm not going to be that lazy coach. I always had much more respect for a coach that laces up the shoes and gets out there with them. You always have much more respect for that coach that'll do that. The coach that you see at 4 a.m. The coach,
And let's be realistic. You're at the point now where the program is so well established and the talent this year that we have is so great that you probably could get by, not, again, by the high expectations that you set professionally and personally, but you could probably get by and still have a phenomenal season with multi-state placers without being the coach that you're being right now. You could sit back, take your foot off the gas and say, hey, boys, I'll let you run the ship. I'll let my experienced assistants run the ship. Charlie, you take control of the weight room, and this fine oiled machine will continue to run whether I'm flooring it or not.
That's a testament to the wrestling.
It won't. That's not how you build or sustain.
And I think that's the biggest thing.
A program at this level for a long time. Who am I if I take this program and in 4 years it's nothing?
Well, I think you said it best with sustained because, you got the talent level now, but what happens when we have 4 seniors or 5 seniors or whomever that we're all hoping are state placers after they graduate?
Right.
Okay, well, now those kids that are filling their shoes are underdeveloped because, the coaches didn't put in the time or the head coach didn't do all the little things that people don't see to be a great head coach and build a great program, so it's not sustainable long term. So I think that's very important. So then the last thing we have for you before we let you go here, because we're creeping up on an hour, Justin and I were talking, and Justin came up with this great idea to kind of give closure to all our interviews, because every person we bring on the show is going to have a different theme. They're going to have a little bit different experience. They're going to have a different message, and it's going to correlate and probably touch home with different listeners and connect with different people. But we somehow wanted to kind of maintain some type of mainstream theme amongst all those, like an underlying connotation along with everybody we interview saying, hey, this is what each person it's almost essentially just adding closure to the interview and giving our listeners something to look forward to every episode that ties in with our belief system. So, Justin, you want to go ahead and talk about what you came up with here with this?
So the question is, what does the phrase chasing dreams mean to you? Do you feel that it's like you've chased your dreams this far, and how do you plan to keep chasing your dreams and help others do the same?
Okay. Wow.
It's like a multi.
Yeah, it's a very loaded question.
And
good luck.
Well, and like you said, we're creeping up on an hour. That did fly.
Yeah.
Like I could talk about a few of these things, like building relationships. I could talk about that for an hour probably. If we really dug into.
And you're so passionate about it. I mean, you're getting goosebumps when you're talking about the raw emotion and stuff.
I can't even. So, what does chasing dreams mean to you? Man, it's become an obsession. I mean, like that. Just seeing kids reach their goals is becoming an absolute, obsession. On the mat, off the mat, it doesn't matter. So, like what in life, what is the most important thing in life? I don't know. Right now, for me, it's helping others. That's the greatest value that that I can bring to the world right now. I think is reaching out to others, helping them reach their goals, because not everybody has the ability to do that, and it's needed a lot more than what actually happens. Like we need people with the ability to reach out to others and to help them to do that, and so I feel like I've chased my dream thus far. Yes. I mean, what do people want? Just in general, what do people want? People want to feel accepted. People want to feel loved.
Yep.
They want to feel appreciated.
Yep.
And above all, like some of the most above all, they want to know that someone's proud of them. And, really, like, some, like, the most powerful words that I can say to a kid right now, like, during a conversation is just saying, like to see the look on their face when I say, I'm proud of you. Like, just those words right there, I'm proud of you, that they may not hear anywhere else, ever. A kid will light up when you just say those three words. I'm proud of you. And just that you're able to change someone's day for the better. Just during practice, kid's tired, he's down, just by going and tapping him on the back. Hey, come on, it's good. Like, it changes somebody's day.
Yeah. I think that it's so cool because this is this is something that I hope everybody listening to this now really takes to heart and understands. You hear a lot about when you do a good deed for someone, they feel good about it. If you hold the door open for someone and smile and ask them how their day's going to a stranger, or you pay for someone's groceries that are behind you in line at a store. When you do something like that, that person is exponentially more motivated and more inclined to do that later on that day for someone else. So it's kind of like a chain reaction. So I think one of the biggest takeaways here is you were raised by good people, hardworking people who were very, very invested in your success.
Yes.
And now you are in that exact role. Mm-hmm. You are giving back to people, raising people, and highly invested in their success. And I'm sure, the ultimate goal is for someday to have your kids that you are training right now and that you are coaching, that you're building all these relationships to go on into adulthood and give back. And it doesn't have to be necessarily in the vein of wrestling. I mean, it can be in any different paradigm you want, whether it's in business or in school. I mean, like, that's part of the reasons I teach is because I had phenomenal teachers that impacted me. And now I think, man, I wonder if I could make connections with kids the same way that some of my teachers impacted me. I wonder what it would be like if someone felt the way that I did about my teachers, if one of my kids felt that way about me. So it's so cool to see you come full circle and say, this is how I was raised, and now I'm giving back. It's like a constant cyclical good karma that continues to go and go and go. And the more people you affect, it continues to branch. It's like a fungus, dude. It spreads.
Yes.
No wrestling pun intended.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no.
So look back to when you were younger or whatever. Like, I feel like almost everyone has that one coach or that one mentor or
Mhm.
that one or just a certain conversation that you remember, like,
Yep.
and you're going to remember it forever.
Justin,
And
you had that at work that
Yeah.
kind of sparked the weight
Yeah.
loss initially.
Right. That trigger.
Yeah, a trigger conversation or a
Yeah.
triggered person or whatever.
absolutely, that maybe changes you forever. And you know that I'm now in the position where I can be that for someone else or a lot of kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's
you're gonna be able to chase.
that's hell chasing dream. That's supposed to be clean. I just said cuss word.
It's all good.
No, that wasn't that bad. That wasn't that bad. I'm chasing dream. I'm living a dream right now.
You can tell
That's
Coach
it.
McComas is getting
I'm living a
excited.
dream
See,
right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I got freaking goosebumps. Thanks.
Yeah.
so that's awesome,
You
man.
can't fake this feeling. When you get butterflies thinking of this stuff, and
And I think that doesn't
can't
that
fake
give
it.
you.
It absolutely has to be genuine. When we're talking about relationships, it has to be genuine.
Do you know what I say? I say that
care.
kids are like dogs. I may have mentioned this on earlier podcasts. I don't know.
Uh-uh.
Now, and it's not because they stink,
Sometimes.
which they do sometimes, or because they're disobedient, which they are sometimes. No, but I say that kids are like dogs. And if you coach or you teach or you're around children, you understand this. Kids are like dogs in the sense that they say that dogs like attack you when they understand that you're afraid. Like if you're fearful of a dog, they're more likely to attack you because they understand that they can they have the ability to attack you. Kids are like dogs, and they sense who's real and who's not. Like if you come in on day one as a teacher, you can try to act cool, and they see right through the facade. Like they know that that's just smoke and mirrors. You're just trying to fit in and stuff. I remember when I took over the strength programming for the football team when I first got to the school here, and I didn't say a word for 3 weeks. I just went in and observed. Did not say a word. Asked the kid, introduced myself to the kids. Just say I'm here to learn right now, because you have to earn their respect first before you start making connections. So I think that kids understand if you're being genuine as a coach or not. And like with you, it doesn't have to just come through the words, even though that's important. Like you said, I mean, if you're proud of you, you're doing a great job. Like, hey, keep it up. We're proud of you. All that stuff goes a long way, but I think what goes beyond that is your actions. Kids know that Coach McComas is genuine because of all the little things that he does on a daily basis that I'm privileged enough to see. And I hope that as you continue to coach throughout your career, I hope the community understands that. I hope that they don't just see the final product of winning. I don't want Coach McComas' legacy to say, hey, he's the best, he's the winningest coach in Beaver local history. He's the best coach in Beaver local history because we won. I want them to say, Coach McComas is the best coach in Beaver local history because I know what he did for my son. I know what he did for my grandkids. I know what he did from this program as far as making children into young adults and making young adults into men. So I think that it's very, very important to be genuine with everything.
Yeah. And right now I feel that we do have that. We have, our entire community loves Beaver local wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And, those walls, our wrestling alumni built the sports complex.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, a huge step for the program too. To have a stand-alone facility did so much for our wrestling program, and to have that, when other schools were rolling mats out in their cafeteria to have practice every single day and rolling them back up every single day.
Yep.
Like that was such a huge thing for our program. We have smart wrestling fans, and they understand like what it takes. So that is just a great thing. After the match last night, I go out to eat, and almost everyone in there, they know who I am, they know what we did, and you have everyone coming up to talk to you. That's just how close this community is, and like how fortunate I am to be in this position.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes a long way to understand that you're also very grateful too. Like you're not, you understand. Yes, you walked into a good position. Like you understand that, like, hey. I'm going to help build this further than what it is, but I understand that there were so many working parts that went into this, and I think that your humility is very much appreciated.
Yeah.
At least from me, it's kind of, again, the same angle I took, and it's motivating, and it's a good model for someone like myself to look at and say, hey, this guy's real humble.
Agreed.
And he knows how much he's impacted people, but he also knows that he's not the only one that's doing it. It's pretty phenomenal. All right, so Coach, is there anything else you want to add?
No,
I mean, we pretty much covered it all.
yeah, we pretty much covered it all. We're here for a while. Like, yeah, I could do this all night. But no, I love what you guys are doing there. Doing with this. This is fun.
It is a great time.
It's great. It's a great thing, and that it goes without saying that you starting this and in your journey and like how great you look in it. I'm proud of you.
That.
Right?
Thank
There you go. He's proud of you.
I like it.
Absolutely. And I'll be back anytime. You guys just tell me when.
So
All right.
I'm thinking, looking tentatively at the schedule, I'm thinking mid-March after your little brother brings home a state title.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we have a couple more on the roster too. How about that?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So we've come to the end of episode 7 of the Chasing Dreams podcast. I'm Charlie with Justin and Coach McComas. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.